From the first aircraft shot down in 1961 to the signing of the Paris Peace Accords in 1973, the Vietnam War cost the United States more than 3,000 combat aircraft and more than 3,200 American aviators. Most of the aviators who survived were captured. These survivors suffered the harshest and longest captivity ever endured by American prisoners of war. Through it all, they displayed extraordinary courage, ingenuity, and perseverance. This is their story. June 6, 1964, the Navy prisoner of war experience began in Laos. Lieutenant Charles Klusman was forced to eject from his RF-8 reconnaissance plane over the plain of Jars. Held prisoner for 3 months, he managed to escape and make his way back to friendly forces. His detailed report of his captivity helped shape the Navy's subsequent prisoner of war training. Navy aviators began bombing operations over North Vietnam in 1964, where effective air defenses created a very hostile environment. Lieutenant Everett Alvarez Jr. became the first American naval aviator taken prisoner in North Vietnam when his A-4C Skyhawk was shot down in August 1964. In Hanoi, he was placed in a prison that captives would later name the Hanoi Hilton. Soon, Alvarez would have plenty of company. 1964's naval engagements in the Gulf of Tonkin escalated air campaigns over the North, continuing through 1972. 1965 saw the beginning of expanded combat in and over South Vietnam. The toll was high, particularly in the North. 800 Navy aircraft lost to all causes, nearly 600 naval aviators and aircrew killed in action, 172 shot down and taken prisoner. 12 naval aviators died in captivity, while others barely survived. Conditions in the 19 North Vietnamese detention camps were terrible. Conditions were harsher in the South, where prisoners, particularly captured Marines, were kept in cages, exposed to the elements with little food. In response, our Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Army prisoners adopted an effective form of resistance anchored by the Code of Conduct, which all U.S. military men and women are pledged to observe. Captured Commander James Stockdale implemented a more concise approach that emphasized prisoner cohesion and long-term resistance. Individual prisoners devised creative and courageous forms of resistance to their captors, preventing their use as propaganda pawns. The North Vietnamese tried to portray humane treatment. In reality, our prisoners were subject to constant torture. When Commander Jeremiah Denton was forced to appear in a propaganda film, he blinked his eyes in a pattern that spelled out torture in Morse code. In case after case, prisoners found their own ways to resist. Pre-war survival training, discipline, pride in service, religious faith, and belief in America strengthened their coordinated survival efforts. Resistance was enhanced with covert communication among the prisoners using a tap code system. Prisoners used a 5x5 matrix of the alphabet and their drinking cups to amplify the knuckle tap coded messages that passed through the walls of their cells. There was little opportunity for escape. A few tried, but were captured before they could leave the country. Though the war was unpopular at home, Americans supported our prisoners of war. Commander Stockdale's wife, Sybil, was a leader of the POW families who provided moral support for one another and kept the POW cause in the public eye. College students and other Americans distributed nearly 5 million POW MIA bracelets engraved with the name, rank, and date of loss of our prisoners, those men missing in action. Some POWs, such as Lieutenant Alvarez, were imprisoned more than 8 years. Finally released at war's end, our prisoners of war were determined to display strength and discipline. Vowing to show no emotion to their captors, they maintained a somber, dignified demeanor as they were turned over to U.S. officials and boarded the C-141 Starlifters. As soon as the planes left enemy airspace, joyful celebration erupted. A few days later in California, following brief stops in the Philippines and Hawaii, the freed men embraced loved ones they had not seen in years. Denton, the first to step off the planes, spoke for all.
God bless America.
God bless America.
As our 160 naval aviators returned to freedom, 7 former prisoners were promoted to admiral. 6 commanded aircraft carriers. Others commanded ships, aviation squadrons, and major shore stations. Many achieved additional recognition after their Navy careers in business, education, and government. In the end, they emerged victorious, bent but not broken. Throughout the war in Vietnam, these men kept up the battle behind bars, and in so doing, demonstrated their extraordinary honor, courage, and commitment to each other, the Navy, and the United States.